Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next in Creator Media. I'm Mike Shields. I'm here with Paul Greenberg. He is the CEO of Butterworks. Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Excited to talk to you. I've known you for a long time in a lot of different roles in this industry. I want to ask you about the creator space and what brands are doing there and when AI and all these cool things. But why don't we, for the folks that don't know, what's Butterworks? What was it? It's evolved quite a bit, I'm sure, given what's gone on in the industry. What is it, and where was it? Where did it start, and where is it today?
Well, let me give you a little bit more of my background. Maybe
that's probably a good place to start,
because I've been in media and digital media my whole career. I was CEO of College Humor. I was CEO at Nylon. I was at A&E Networks, where I ran their digital video studio and one of their cable networks. I ran digital at Time Inc. and at TV Guide. 100 years ago, I was at MTV, which was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Particularly back then. But
one of the jobs in media, really, at one point.
Yeah, exactly. I got very lucky. But about 7 years ago, I founded Butterworks. We're a digital video company, or digital media company, really, with a big focus on AI. We've been using AI since 2018 when we were founded. Started off using it on the predictive side, meaning we were trying to figure out how to help people understand what kinds of videos to make to be most successful on social. So we were using natural language processing and computer vision and things like that to say, like, on TikTok, your video should be this long and they should focus on this and they should open with a human expression, et cetera, et cetera. And we've evolved quite a bit to do a lot of generative AI, as you might imagine. We also go in and kind of do AI 101s for people. We'll sort of set the stage about what's going on in the industry, and then we'll pick a project to work on them with that'll help them advance their business. So, we also do straight video production, which is still a thing.
So, okay, I was going to ask you, because 2018, you're like really early talking AI, and I wonder how many of your customers were ready to think that way versus like were companies coming to you saying, I just want to figure out how to get stuff on Snap and TikTok and whatever, and you kind of like brought the AI into or was it always the premise behind what you're doing?
No, it really evolved. You're right, to a large extent, where people were saying, "Hey, will you make me? Will you run my Snapchat channel, for example?" And we did that. But we also were starting to use AI at the very beginning, like I said, to help them figure out what kinds of videos they should make to be most successful. So, if you are Animal Planet, for example, we can come to you and say, don't focus on dogs and cats. Those videos it's oversaturated. There are too many of those out there. Focus on animal babies and animals giving birth. There's a much higher chance of success because there are fewer of them out there, but the ones that are out there do really well. And we were using, proprietary AI and clustering techniques and things like that to figure out what topics and subtopics would be most successful.
I think. And the reason I'm asking about that is because I think people, maybe it's just me, that people associate AI is either letting the machine do everything and you lose control or do all the credit. This is like a different way of using it. Makes you more successful.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So we would use computer vision to look at the video, this whole tranche of thousands of videos about animals to figure out what was working and what was going on in the videos. And and then we would match it up with metrics to figure out what kinds of videos were most successful and how long they were, like I said, and as well as, trying to understand, should you start your video with an angry expression or a disgusted expression or a happy expression? And turns out happy expressions don't do that well when you start off with that. You want to give people a sense of intrigue and shock. So you really want to start your video out with a disgusted or an angry expression in some cases. But we were able to kind of let people know what they should, and we weren't replacing the creatives, to be very clear.
Right.
We were giving the creatives lane lines to play in. So again, it's like, come up with a generic animal video. You're totally blue sky. It's really hard to do that. Or come up with an animal giving birth video, and that's going to give you.
We're talking a lot about animals giving birth so far on the show.
Sorry, yeah, but it's going to give you guardrails to play in,
right,
and just make it easier for creatives to do their jobs.
And how were you doing this then? Because you didn't have ChatGPT and all these things to tap into. Were you just like doing your own analytics? Like, were you pulling from a whole bunch of different APIs? What was this like?
Yeah, we were pulling from APIs from the platforms, and we wrote a lot of our own code. We had a data scientist on the team who was doing, a lot of that work. We were using AWS to do a lot of the computer vision and the natural language processing work. I mean, obviously, we weren't going to be able to build that ourselves, but we didn't need to. So there were a couple of off-the-shelf solutions that we looked at. But there was a lot of proprietary code that we ran to do this and to figure out those topics and subtopic clusters.
Okay, so I do want to come back to the use of AI, especially fast forward to where you are today, which is going to be, I think, really interesting. But where are you? Like you've watched this evolve over time, where brands and agencies would subcontract this kind of work, would find someone who helps them get going on Snap and TikTok, or figure out how to work with creators. How has it changed overall? Like, what kind of trends are you seeing in this creator space when it comes to media and advertising? And are we doing enough there, generally speaking?
It's interesting. I think that kind of what's old is new again, in the sense that videos are getting longer. So all the platforms have increased their maximum time. TikTok, you can now do a 60-minute video. YouTube Shorts went from 15 seconds to 3 minutes. On YouTube proper, if you're verified, you could basically make it as long as you want. I think that we're seeing, I don't want to say a return to traditional television in that respect, but we are seeing longer videos that are creating engagement that people are expecting to spend more time with. And I think that's only good for brands, because it gives you more of a chance for product placement. It gives you more of a chance for pre, mid, and post roll, or commercials, if you want to call them that. But I think that it really gives people the opportunity on the brand and the agency and the media side to interact with an audience in a way that's comfortable and extensive, in the sense that it gives them lots of choices and lots of opportunity.
Why do you think that happens? It's probably hard to answer that across the board, but because I think the presumption was everyone's attention span was getting worse. Everything was feed driven and random. But then you had creators who were having these, obviously building up real audiences and looking to do bigger projects and consistency. Like, was it a business move by the platforms to just, you can squeeze in more ads with longer stuff? Did the consumers lead us here? Like, why is this happening?
I think it was both. I think it was push and pull in that respect. I think that the platform said, hey, we're not seeing enough ad revenue and we want to give people more opportunity to monetize. Plus, we're also, but I think on the audience side, I think, there's a place for super short form video. And TikTok Reels, YouTube Shorts still offer that in spades. There's lots of, very small, very short videos on those platforms, of course. But I think that consumers wanted to go deeper with their favorite creators. If you're a Markiplier fan, you want to know more about him. You want to sort of see more of what he's doing. Obviously, Mr. Beast, and Kai Cenat and all those people are doing a lot with much longer videos. I mean, Kai Cenat's video was a month long. So,
yes.
different beast altogether. But I think that creators, that the audiences of creators want to get closer to them and want to know more about them and want, a connection to them in the same way that old TV audiences wanted a connection to their favorite characters.
So when it comes to explaining that to brands, when you work with them, are they, I'm sure you still get that, like, give me something viral, make sure this takes off, make something that the algorithm is going to love versus making something for viewers that people are going to love and their creators should know that. How do you get those questions, and do you struggle with that balance, your clients?
We do. We struggle with that all the time. And obviously you want to go viral. You want as many views as possible. You want as many new followers as possible. You want as much engagement as possible. Some of the work I was describing before about, the insights that Butterworks was doing helped with that, where we were able to say, this is a little bit of art and science mixed together, where, we can tell you, again, the guardrails you might want to play in, but then you got to bring your own creativity and your own special sauce to the party. But I think that, it really gets to a point where the algorithm is almost not impossible to figure out, but it's very difficult. Right now on YouTube, what's fascinating is the algorithm isn't working for the platform. It's working for each individual audience member. So you and I have different YouTube algorithms that it feeds us in terms of recommendations. And, they've been talking about this publicly recently, where they're saying, watch time matters and thumbnails matter and A/B testing of how titles matters. But at the end of the day, you want to figure out how you can have the most number of people, the biggest number of people really gravitate towards your content. But again, you're getting recommendations that I'm not getting.
So that's changed.
It makes it difficult
because you see creators, and this has been talked about a lot. They go for the same kind of thumbnails, the same kind of headlines because they think they figured out something in the algorithm.
Right.
Is that changing now because it's more individual, or has it always kind of been that challenge?
I think it's changing. Back then there were cruder tools for targeting. There was, collaborative filtering. So it was like putting people into cohorts and not being able necessarily to say, Mike is going to like this kind of video because he's watched, these other videos. And so I think it is changing, and I think it's going to make it more difficult for creators to continue to build audiences because they don't understand, and they can't possibly understand the algorithm for each individual person, which means that you've got to just stay true to what you're building and try new things. But have your own authentic voice come through. And this has always been a problem. If you're trying to fix the machine and figure out how you can create content and media for an algorithm, it's going to be very difficult to make it work just on that one-to-one basis. You've really got to bring some soul and some creativity to the table as well.
Okay, I know we're talking very broadly here a lot. Besides animal births, what give us some stuff what are some kinds of things you're working on with brands that are really working right now, either really interesting campaigns or collaborations with creators that people we should be paying attention to?
That's a good question. We can't talk about too many of them. There are still a lot that are private, but we're working with a number of different parties. Like, for example, this is kind of interesting. We're doing generative AI in certain cases where we're actually using tools to create video out of prompts or out of pre-existing images or videos. That's still good, but it's still not. You'd still need to do a lot in post-production to make those kinds of things work. But for example, we're working with, or we've been working with a healthcare network of cardiologists who are building a video portal for patient education. And I think this is really interesting because
the classic creator YouTube tale.
Precisely. But, but you have, your provider gives you a QR code, you scan it, you watch a playlist, but we're using AI to create digital avatars of the doctors to create customized videos for patient groups.
Oh, that's interesting.
So your doctor introduces a playlist of videos that you can watch. It makes it more customizable. It makes it, there are better outcomes for patients. It causes fewer phone calls to the doctor's offices,
saves them
and
money.
It gives brands opportunities like device companies and pharma. It gives them opportunity to, really get in and work with specific cohorts of patients and doctors that they really didn't have the opportunity to do before. So that's sort of one of the projects that we've been working on in the past. It's been really interesting. We're working with a couple of other really interesting creators. We don't work generally with individual creators. We mostly work with larger companies and brands.
Uh-huh.
But I think that another one of the trends that's been interesting. Everybody comes and says, "Okay, use AI and eliminate all the people."
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, where are you now with this? Because my mind goes to the negative place always.
Exactly.
What do we need Paul anymore for? We just, plug it into a machine. Right.
We plug it into a machine. What do we need Paul as, the executive for? And what do we need Paul, the creator, for if I have, a successful YouTube channel? And we're not there yet. And I don't know that we're ever going to be there specifically, but you look at like Lil Miquela, and you look at, not fake, but AI generated creators, who are incredibly successful. Although what's interesting with Lil Miquela and people like that is their engagement isn't quite as high as it is with human creators. And that may be that people, gravitate towards what she's wearing or what she's, touting in terms of outfits or other things she talks about, music. But there's still some gap.
Like the relationship is not the same.
It's not quite the same. Exactly. That's the data that I've seen. And again, I'm sure, your mileage may vary, but I think that there's, there are a lot of people who still do want that human connection. And I also think that, it's incumbent on creators to use AI to augment their work and to be creative. So there are people like Mac Parr, who has 12 different channels that are all faceless videos where it's just VO over stock footage. But he's using AI to create all of that, and it's doing very well. There's like Chase Reiner and Isabella Cotsias, if you know them.
Mike
They're
is nodding.
using AI to so they're using AI to create, they're actually using it not necessarily to create the video up front first, but they're using it to figure out trends, and sort of like what I was describing with what Butterworks was doing before. So I think that there's a lot of different ways you can use AI to augment the kind of work that you're doing. But it's still, you still do need, humans in the loop. Having said that, I think another interesting way to look at this is deepfakes. And I don't know if you saw this, but ByteDance just announced, they haven't released it, but they announced something called Omni-Human, which is one of the most convincing deepfake technologies that I've seen so far. They deepfake Taylor Swift singing at a concert and all kinds of other crazy things, which you've seen before. Mm-hmm. This seems to be technologically a step ahead.
A little bit better than that Tom Cruise thing everyone talks about.
Exactly. It's so we're getting there too. And so, as I said, sort of with the doctors, where we're using digital avatars to have doctors quote unquote speak, where we have them train a video for 3 minutes and then use text prompts to just have them talk for as many hours as we need. There's going to be a lot more of that as well.
A little bit of random question, but with the open, there's a lot of fear on the open web, and I guess it's already really happening, where you're going to see a flood of AI slop, because that is what is going to the new version, the new search engines are going to respond to. It sounds like you're talking about there are these like synthetic creators on YouTube and TikTok, and there are these creators using these tools to enhance what they do. Are you seeing, or are you worried about these platforms being flooded with just total garbage that is meant to, populate search results, take monetization from somebody else? Are the platforms on top of it? Like, should we be freaking out about that? Or
I don't know if we should freak out about it, but it's absolutely happening. And, Google's admitted they're having trouble keeping up with all of the new AI created content. And, but then again, they're sort of perpetuating that in a way where they've got the AI Gemini overview at the top of many searches.
Not exactly saying no to it, right? It's right, a weird position.
Exactly. And how do you SEO for that? It's almost impossible because there's sort of one result that they're giving.
Right.
And before they still had those with their overviews where they'd give one result, but then they had links closer to the top where you could choose and kind of scroll down and see what you were looking at. These are really being presented in a way that's authoritative. And obviously it's made a lot of mistakes, glue on pizza and other kinds of things that we've seen. But I think that, it's going to be hard. It's going to become harder and harder to separate the wheat from the chaff with those kinds of things and figure out, what's real and what's going to be worth my time.
Right.
Again, it comes down to the attention economy at the end of the day, right? There's a finite amount of attention that's not getting any bigger. And so at a certain point as a consumer, am I just going to turn it off and say, I can't tell what's good and what's bad. I don't know what I'm going to be fed. So I'm going to go somewhere else and try to figure out how I can do that. And so, I think that there's a lot of those kinds of things that could start to happen as slop proliferates.
Coming back to your company and how you work with brands and media agencies, and they're like, have things gotten any cleaner or smoother in terms of like where the budgets come from and where the decision making comes? Is it coming? Are you mostly getting production work through social video budgets? Are you working with media budgets overall? Is it all over the map still in terms of how it happens?
It is all over the map, and it depends on the company. And even within the same company, we're getting budgets from different places. So sometimes it's the research group, sometimes it's the marketing group, sometimes it's the content group, which is all good. But I think that it sort of
take
speaks
the money. You'll take the project.
Take the money, exactly. But it speaks to the fact that I think media companies are still trying to figure this out. And look, a couple of them have done some interesting experiments, right? I mean, Runway did a deal with Lionsgate to have them try to train on their corpus and help them create new content. Blumhouse did a deal with Meta. And then within the companies, obviously Netflix has been using AI forever, and they're doing a great job with it. Disney has a product called Face Director, which allows composite takes of facial expressions that they can put together and combine in an interesting way. And then the de-aging kind of thing. So Adobe has a product called Sensei, which is great for post-production, removing objects, things like that. So there's a lot of things that media companies are doing as they kind of go down this rabbit hole and try to figure out how to use AI. But then again, you hear, the Brutalists editor said, "Oh yeah, we used AI a little bit on their, we used Respeecher on the Hungarian accents for the characters," and huge amounts of blowback. So it's still very muddy in terms of what's okay and what's not. Yeah. I feel like if you use AI as a tool and people get paid for it, then there's no, then that's okay in a lot of ways. So if you have an actor who allows you to use her likeness for a movie, but she didn't have to act in it, but she's still getting paid, I think that's even better, right? She didn't have to get out of bed.
I guess the question is, just how much does the audience deserve or want to know about these things or care? And I think that's probably an open question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
All right, totally unrelated, but very of the moment. I'm asking everybody this. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. It's very confusing. Can anything replace it? I've heard very different opinions that everyone will just go to the Reels and YouTube Shorts. It's such a different audience and different algorithm that won't happen. It's up for grabs. Do you have any sense of what might happen if this ban actually takes place?
I mean, it was fascinating to see everybody go to Red Note all of a sudden.
Right. Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. And I think that, Red Note has a very similar algorithm to TikTok, which I think was what was so appealing. Obviously that we'll see where that goes. But I think that the Reels algorithm and the Shorts algorithms are very different from TikTok.
Yeah.
So I don't know what replaces it, to be honest. I think people will gravitate towards those two platforms because they want to consume that kind of content. I think that, obviously Instagram particularly is trying to adjust to be more like TikTok with vertical thumbnails and things like that. But I think that, or rectangular thumbnails, I should say. But I think that it's going to just simply be a different kind of experience. I don't know that you can replicate what TikTok is. People still will crave that type of content interaction. They're still going to want to see their favorite creators and their favorite cat videos and things like that. So I think that people will gravitate towards that. Those platforms are growing anyway, and they do a great job of giving people what they want. Go ahead.
What do I think?
Yeah. What do you think?
God, I don't know. I think you'll see a YouTube or Reels get very aggressive and try and they're already trying to snag creators, and that they seem to want to push those apps in front of people more. I think it's very unpredictable that you can't just assume that a young, like the crowd that's on TikTok regularly, and I know it's very broad, they're trendy by nature because they're younger, so it's just really hard to predict. I was going to ask you, do you think, you hear people joke about that's like zombie time or brain rot, and it's not great for you, but they get stuck in it. Do brands think about that? Like when you talk to them, would they rather be part of these longer form, besides the real estate, I guess is a question, but do they want to be associated with that, like mindless scrolling, or is it seen as like super engaging and really valuable?
I think, again, it goes back to attention. And I think they want to be associated wherever there are people's eyeballs. And they are, what we're seeing is people are trying to figure out, they would love to be part of that economy and that algorithm and those audiences. So I don't think they're saying, oh, this is brain rot, we don't want anything to do with it. I think there's types of content that are objectionable, obviously.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't think there's a sort of ethos that says, oh, we're not interested in TikTok because it's short form and because it's sort of mindless scrolling. I think the problem everybody's having is trying to figure out how to appear authentic as a brand. And so you have, a couple of breakthroughs like Duolingo, like Arby's, and people like that who are doing great jobs of figuring out how to really sort of insert themselves into the zeitgeist. But I don't see anybody saying I don't want to be part of that because it's not good enough for us. I think what they're saying is, how do we be good enough for it?
Last question is, have you seen any shift? There was a hyper amount of attention and concern around brand safety and brand and suitability on these platforms in recent years. Now it's almost, we're like in this new era where Meta's like said, forget it. I'm not going to monitor anything. We have the big masculine energy, Trump time, like no one cares anymore. Or at least it feels like that. Are you seeing any sort of pullback on brands being concerned about these things? Or not necessarily?
I haven't. And I think that Meta even said last week, they're not seeing any slowdown in advertisers since they announced their policy to remove the fact checkers. So I feel like brands are sort of adapting to the new world. Brands are really an indicator of the collective consciousness, and so they're lagging indicators to some extent of what's going on out there. And so if people are still going to be on Meta's platforms, and obviously, you saw their numbers, their DAUs just keep going up.
Yeah, they're half their business is Instagram right now.
Right, exactly. It's crazy. And kudos to them for being able to build that business like they have been. But I see brands going where the audiences are. Yeah. And the audiences are still there and not concerned with those issues yet. As soon as the audiences become concerned, I think the brands will become concerned.
Right. All right, well, Paul, so many other things we could talk about, but let's leave it there. Thanks so much for an awesome conversation, and let's do this again.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.